So I'm going to try to do my impression of you since I watch you every day. And for people listening, we have the returning guest, Philip Rossman Reich, and you are indeed locked on Magic tonight. A little bit of a different person running the helm here, but the legend from Lockdown Magic, Philip Rossman Reich, is here. OrlandoMagicDaily.com, Locked On Magic on all your podcasting sites. The man that's been back and forth to Cleveland for the past 2 weeks. I think you should get like a little apartment there because you've been running back and forth. And I'm sure your frequent flyer miles are out of control right now because you've been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I
And
mean,
I
if
know,
if I if I were using the same airline, they might be.
oh, true. Good point. Well, we're sorry about that. We wish that you were so you would be able to travel with more free flights. But regardless of that, anyways, Phil, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate you always coming on here, talking Magic basketball. And we'll start with that. I do want to go into Game 7, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. If I doze off, it's because I'm very, very tired. Been a long day here. Season's ready to put a close on the season, and like the players, get a little time for myself here before we dive into the off season.
Well, Phil, let's talk about this. You know, I'm a regular viewer of your show, and I texted you, I believe, yesterday. I mean, I feel like all the days are running into each other now with this series going all the way to 7 games. Watching the game from home and just seeing the Magic come out with that heart and hustle, Banchero getting 24 points in the first half, Magic leading at one point by 18 points. You know, I was thinking in my mind, Phil, and I know you were at the game. I was like, are we peaking too soon? And that thought was going through my head, but I was like, maybe we get up to 18, maybe we get up to 20, 25, and then maybe that's just enough to move on to Boston on Tuesday. But obviously, we all know what happened yesterday, and the Magic were not successful. Apollo had a great first half, but obviously Suggs and Wagner really had some tough games, the both of them. I know Suggs, there was, and I hate to bring in the referee issue, but he was hit 2 or 3 times taking a 3-pointer, smacked around. Wagner driving to the basket, was blocked a bunch of times by Mobley, but was also getting smacked around. No calls there. And I know the Cavs fans, saying they weren't getting calls. I thought the refereeing was kind of horrendous in general. So let's just start with that. For both teams, they were letting them play. We appreciate that, but was it a little too much? And then let's get into the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not one to blame refs.
Right, no, but
Yeah, like these are two teams that play physically. They foul a lot. It is what it is. The issue was the Magic never really adjusted to how the game was being played. And maybe it's fair to say that it was called one way in the first half and called a little bit different in the second half,
right.
and the Magic didn't quite adjust in the second half. But look, the fouling did play a role in that it threw the Magic off of rhythm. Franz Wagner had 3 fouls in the first half, had 2 early fouls, so he had to be real careful with how he attacked and how he played. That changes your mindset a little bit. I thought the Magic fouled a lot in that third quarter. A big reason why I think Cleveland was able to get back in the game, and Cleveland didn't shoot great from the foul line, but they got 30 free throws in the game. That was something the Magic done a good job avoiding to that point in the series. And that settled Cleveland down. Cleveland already started making their run late in the second quarter, but coming out in the third quarter, being able to get to the foul line, kind of get some easy shots, see the ball go through the basket a little bit. More importantly, give themselves a chance to get their defense set so Orlando wasn't running on them. That stuff really matters. And so, I'm not here to say whether the officials called a good game or a bad game. They called the game that they called. And the Magic just could not get their grips back on the game. And I think, yes, the fouls disrupted their rhythm and made them question decisions they were making. And Cleveland was the one on the attack, and they were the ones that eventually won the game.
So let's talk about that. 18 points in the first half. When you saw the Magic come out with that heart and hustle, Banchero on fire from everywhere around. Even Wendell Carter had a great game, I thought, for, the whole series. I thought he played fairly well. But regardless, just speaking about Game 7, what was your thoughts when you saw the Magic come out and were up by 18 points in that first half?
Yeah, it felt like they finally like kind of clicked in, like they all kind of figured it out. Like, you know, they've obviously struggled a ton in that building, and you know they made a bunch of threes early, and that gives you a lot of confidence. They're finally playing from ahead in that building, and it just felt like, okay, you know, Cleveland's going to make their run. We know that, but it looked like Donovan Mitchell had kind of run out of gas. That crowd was really restless. They you know they obviously wanted a reason to cheer for their team. But there's a lot of tension in that building. There's been a lot of tension in that building the last two games up there. And so it felt like Orlando had like kind of found something and put their thumb on it and you know, was just kind of driving that point home. But, you know, there's a stretch late in the first quarter. And then again, that stretch late in the second quarter where where the Magic were getting a lot of stops, but they weren't growing or expanding their lead. That 18-point lead probably needed to be 20, 25, like you said. And so just leaving that door just a little bit open, you know, going into the half giving up a 12-4 run, that's the kind of stuff that kills you. And I said this after game 5, because I felt like Orlando played a really good game in game 5. They obviously gave themselves a chance to win, but there was a stretch in game 5 where Cleveland was really struggling. You could feel the tension in the crowd, and Orlando had the lead back and all the momentum, and they kind of just dropped the ball. And to me, this is where their inexperience closing out and winning games and winning big games, especially, really played out. They didn't know how, or they couldn't kind of put their thumb and make an 18-point lead, a 25-point lead. And in a game like this, in a game of this importance, of this magnitude in the playoffs where every possession matters, going to the locker room up 10 instead of up 15 is huge. Those those final 2.5, 3 minutes of the second quarter, that was the game as much as any moment in the game. You know, we could always talk about late game situations, but I would argue for the Magic in game 5, where they ultimately lost that game was probably like late third quarter, early fourth quarter, when they had a chance to expand their lead and they didn't do it. They did that every time at home when they were at the Kia Center. You know, Cleveland made a big run in the third quarter of game 6. They answered that call. Cleveland never got off the mat in game 4. They come out in the third quarter. They put the hammer down. Being able to put the hammer down like that is what differentiates good teams from bad teams. And, you know, I think the Magic can probably sit here and say, we were the better team over 7 games, but we didn't put the Cavs away when we had the chance. And that's, to me, this team is very mature. They're very poised, but they don't know how to do that. And I think that's ultimately what left the door open for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who does know how to do that stuff, allowed him to do that at home. And obviously then the momentum turned against them.
Phil, I want to ask you this question. Obviously, Jamal Mosley coached a phenomenal season, a phenomenal playoff series. He was getting outcoached in game 1 and game 2, made some adjustments, and obviously the rest of the series, he coached extremely well. My question was, in game 7, obviously the Magic had that 18-point lead. It started to fade out, as you just stated, going on that 12-4 run for the Cavaliers. Jamal Mosley was very, and maybe you disagree with it, it looked like he was kind of a little hesitant to call the timeouts. At the end of the game, and I remember this very vividly, looking at the scoreboard when the Magic were about to lose, about 3-4 seconds left, and the Magic had 2 timeouts still on the board.
That's nothing.
But you don't think that because
back. No, so the way the NBA works is you have 2 timeouts in the final 3 minutes of a game. I don't think he needed to call extra timeouts. The last thing that you want to do as a coach is show panic. And it's not like the Magic were ever out of the game. It's not like the Magic were down, 15, 20 points. Like the run was big. But every time it felt like the Magic answered.
But clearly, Phil, between us and everybody listening, the past 3 minutes of the game, they were clearly running out of steam.
The issue,
Paulo was totally done. He was gassed.
But that to me is not a problem of coaching. That is a problem. That is a problem of Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs to not give you
and they're depending too much on Paulo. I agree.
But you don't
clearly gassed. You got to get him
he was clearly gassed. But they don't have a choice. Like there are people who are like I fielded a lot of questions, a lot of comments saying the Magic needed to do this or they needed to do that, and I was just like, well, look down the bench.
No, they don't have the depth.
What do you want them to do? Like
Yeah.
everyone's complaining about Gary Harris, and Gary Harris had a decent game 7. He's not going to be there. He's not the guy to shoot 20 shots. Like, at the end of the day, the Magic got the guys they want shooting the ball in big situations, shooting the ball. Right. And Paolo Banchero made a shot. He was 4 for 14 in the third quarter. And if there's one thing that Mosley could have done a little bit better is try and find different ways to get others involved. But, Franz Wagner got all the shots he got in game 6 and missed them all. Jalen Suggs got open threes. And I agree. He probably should have gotten a couple foul calls to get to the line a little bit more, but he missed the shots. At the end of the day, a coach cannot control makes or misses. Right. Calling a timeout's not going to fix that. They executed, outside.
But it does stop the momentum, and it gives Paolo a break.
At home, it does. On the road, with how loud that crowd was, and all the players acknowledged how much of a factor the crowd was.
Right.
You call a timeout, they get up on their feet, they're cheering like crazy. That doesn't necessarily stop momentum. At the end of the day, it's a game 7. Random stuff can happen in any one game. At the end of the day, the Magic didn't make the shots they needed to make, and they didn't get the stops they needed to calm themselves down. Now, we can debate why that is. The Magic, I'm sure the Magic's front office is going to be debating that for the next few months before free agency as they decide what they're trying to do. At the end of the day, you want Paolo Banchero shooting the 20-plus shots that he shot. You want Franz Wagner taking 15 shots. You don't want 1 for 15, but you want him taking 15 shots. You want Jalen Suggs taking 13 to 15 shots. The guys, the Magic executed the shots that they wanted to get, and they missed them. And, the question is, okay, was there another way for them to get those points? And unfortunately, and this may be on Mosley, but I think this is more about personnel, the Magic really only have one way to attack. Jalen Suggs is not good attacking off the dribble. And so with Franz Wagner struggling the way that he was, Orlando could only go to that post up to Paolo Banchero and just try and force attention onto him so he could kick out to open shooters. And he did the best he could. Obviously, it's not enough. It's the same thing that happened in the fourth quarter of game 6. Donovan Mitchell was doing everything by himself. He ran out of gas at the end. He needed Darius Garland to give him just one make or 2 makes. And obviously Darius Garland didn't have a great game, but he had the one big make in the fourth quarter, that one big 3.
Yeah, that's
Evan Mobley gave him big support. Karis LeVert was huge off the bench. The Magic dominated this series off the bench for every game but game 7. LeVert showed up in game 7, saved them in the first quarter, saved them again in the second quarter, was a big part of those runs. Sam Merrill came off the bench for 2 big threes in that second quarter. The Magic just did not get the help for Paolo that they need. And why that happened, it could just be a 1-game anomaly. It could be something more embedded in the roster. But, I don't know what tweaks you want Jamal Mosley to make other than to tell everyone to calm down. He's doing that. He's a very calm dude. Right. I don't think the Magic were ever panicking or ever losing control. There was frustration that they weren't making shots, and Cleveland was able to get out and beat them before they could get their defense set. They couldn't figure out the fouling, so it was just kind of a cascading set of problems that are just really difficult to solve. And maybe you can only solve them by failing at it once and knowing, okay, we can't let this happen again. We've got to be responsible for ourselves.
I guess what I was just getting to is when they had that 18-point lead, it just dwindled so fast. And I thought we needed to call a couple of timeouts there. You got to burn them there when you have that kind of lead.
Yeah, but so the 12-4 run that ended the first half, that happened in about 2.5 minutes. There's your timeout there is halftime, and you're still up 10. He called a timeout pretty quickly into the third quarter too. Right. You can't just burn all your, you're right.
So I understand. I'm with you.
You can't take your timeouts home, but at the end of the day, it's on the players to execute. You can call a timeout and calm everyone down, but I think throughout the course of this series, we saw the Magic's if the Magic were a more experienced playoff team, they win this series in 5. No offense to my Cleveland Cavs friends, no offense to anyone following that team. Cleveland won the series. They deserve to win the series. A more experienced team beats that Cleveland team. Right. That is the reason why the Cavs wanted to face the Magic in the first round. That's why everybody wanted to face the Magic in the first round. Not because they'd be an easy out, but because you'd be able to take advantage of some of these moments where their inexperience would matter. Orlando lost the first 2 games of the series as much on Jamal Mosley's inexperience as the team's inexperience in general. Like everyone just needed a moment to get used to what playoff basketball was. I would argue that Jamal Mosley cost the Magic a game and a half. And obviously it was a 7-game series. That game and a half mattered. But they figured it out. That this team deserves a lot of credit for that. But I think in like game 5 and game 7 specifically, you could see where, okay, this team is really good. They're up for the moment, but they just don't know how to dial it up just that one little bit that you need to in the playoffs. And Donovan Mitchell knows how to do that. He may be the only player on the Cavs that knew how to do that, but he knows how to do it. He did it, had huge game 5, huge game 6, huge game 7, and that's why Cleveland's playing Boston on Tuesday.
All right, let's pause here for a second. I'm going to cut this right here. Okay. All right. So just moving on, Phil. So again, Locked On Magic on all your podcasting sites, Orlando Magic Daily, and Phil, shout out the Patreon too, if you could.
Yeah, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub for just even more Magic content, just a little bit extra that I write there just for subscribers. So it's, just $5 a month, nothing crazy, just to support me and the work that I do.
Yeah, because you're running around like crazy every 10 seconds.
Yeah. Gotta slow down here a little bit. I'm retiring my suitcase for a little while. At least until Vegas, at least till Summer League.
Okay. All right. So just moving on, what grade would you give the Magic this season?
I mean, an A. Like okay. they, the goal for me this season was to get to the playoffs and just have this team experience what that is like, and just get a sense of, okay, what does this team look like in the playoffs? And ultimately, what do they need to be successful in the playoffs? So beyond getting 47 wins, getting the 5 seed, which, far outpaced what I thought this team was going to do this season. To do that and to get to 7 games and very clearly see, okay, this works, this doesn't, this is an area where this team could improve, just seeing all of that, that's exactly what this team needed. And to see them stand tall and, honestly, this is probably the highest compliment you can get. I was talking to some reporters in Cleveland after game 7, and they were like, throughout the whole series, every Cleveland reporter was like, yeah, Orlando is where Cleveland was last year. They're new to the playoffs. They're trying to get a feel for what this is like. They're just hoping for a competitive series. All of them said that Orlando had the series Cleveland wanted last year against New York. And obviously, like, the whole series against Orlando from the Cavs perspective was, can they learn the lessons from how badly they got beat against New York? And honestly, like, yes, they won the series and they got the result, but I think a lot of Cavs fans are still feeling like they did not learn the lessons from New York. They got pushed around a little bit. They got bullied by an upstart Magic team that was, I think everyone acknowledged was just happy to be here. And the fact that they almost won the series is just incredible. And, you could feel the mood around the Kia Center. I was able to get to a little bit of exit interviews. I've been listening to the audio throughout the day. Now that I'm back in town, the mood is like, yes, we didn't win the series, but we accomplished a lot. We showed the league, we showed ourselves what we're capable of doing and what kind of team we are. And now we're aiming to be better. Now we're aiming to be even better than that. And so, there's a lot of joy and pride in what this team did. And it's deserved, because the Magic did something that I don't think anybody expected them to do except for the people inside that building at the Kia Center and the Advent Health Training Center. This was a dream season. This is going to be remembered as one of the most special seasons in Magic history. And, we're going to view it as the beginning of hopefully a long playoff run. And so now obviously it's on them to keep building and keep growing this thing.
I'll go with a B+ because I believe we could have won that series, as you stated earlier on. So I'll go B+, but I do think it was a special season. It does remind me of that 99-2000 hot and hustle team. They did not make the playoffs, but they were very close, a hop, skip, and a jump to making the playoffs. I want to get into, with the last topic, obviously the offseason moves. I know you're going to be talking about this on Locked On Magic for the next few months. Just quickly talking about the draft before we get into free agency and maybe some possible trades quickly. Speaking about the draft, obviously the Magic have the 18th pick and the 47th, pick in the
keep
NBA
that number,
draft.
Keep that number low.
Yeah, I know, right?
Further back in the draft this year.
So what do you think, Phil? Obviously, the talk is, and we'll talk a little bit about free agency in just a second, but the talk is you need that point guard, obviously, to distribute to Banchero, to distribute to Suggs and Wagner, but you also need a shooter. I know you talk about how the draft is down. You're probably not going to get a really good shooter in the draft, but let's start with the draft. What's your take on that? What do the Magic do at 18 and 47? Do they trade? Do they draft? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, everything is of a piece of a piece. The first place you got to look is you got to remember the Magic are going to be essentially bringing in a rookie next year in Jet Howard. Jet
Mm-hmm.
Howard played, 11th pick in last year's draft, played the entire season with the Osceola Magic
Right.
essentially, and had a really good year. I think
And he's a
people,
shooter, to be
and he's a
honest.
shooter. He's a
Yeah.
shooter. That is they drafted him knowing he was already a shooter, and they wanted him to develop a little bit of playmaking, which he showed in Osceola. They wanted him to develop a little bit. They wanted him to be a better defender, and I think Jet embraced that idea and is trying to be a better defender. We'll see what he looks like in summer league, where you hope that he looks like, okay, this is a guy that's been through the ringer before. He's not a rookie anymore. But it's tough because the Magic had two rookies on last year's roster, and neither of them played. Anthony Black got a little bit of run early in the season. He's already a really good defender. He's come a long way as a shooter already. But neither of them played significant minutes this season. So it's hard to sit here and say, okay, this team, can afford to bring in another rookie. So, I'm not saying the Magic are out there aggressively shopping their pick. It's not the greatest draft, but if they need to add that draft pick to a move that they're looking to make, they do that. And obviously you're not, I'm a big believer. You don't just make trades to make trades. You don't just trade a pick just because you can, or because you don't have room for the rookie. You do have room for the rookie. It's called the G League. You did it last year with Jet Howard. It's why, it's much more practice now around the league that you have rookies, or you have really raw rookies. You send them the G League to get some experience, to get some seasoning. If they can't make the roster, give them playing time. I tell people this all the time. You don't draft rookies for their rookie year. You draft them for the whole life of that contract, of that rookie contract. So I personally, like, with where this team is at, they're not going to meaningfully address a need through the draft. There's just that player is just not on this roster. There's no fantastic, like, great center shot blocker like Derek Lively was last year at that stage. There's no great combo scoring guard like Keontae George. I mean, you could look at a few guys like I think Keyshawn George from Miami, or there's a few guys there's a few guys that might fit that bill, but none of them are Keontae George, who got drafted around 18 last year too. So to me, when I look at the Magic's draft strategy, it's, yes, you explore every possibility, and it's all part of the same deal. Like, it's all part of the same question. How do you make this team better? But I think if you're going to use the pick, you use it on the best player on your board. And if that player doesn't have a space on the roster this year, that player plays in Osceola. That's why it's there. And you figure out if that's a play, if you figure out, he obviously has to fit a little bit of what you want. You want to create some pathway for him to play, if not his rookie year, then his second year. But you use the G League as a tool. It's not a bad thing to spend a gap year in the G League, whether you're going for like a center like Tyler Smith or Yves Missi. If you're going for a wing like a Keyshawn George, like I'm trying to remember names that are going around that time. Bobby Clintman, you could keep stashed in Europe and have him develop there for a few more years. There are interesting players. They're just maybe not players who are ready to contribute to what the Magic are trying to accomplish next year. They just may need more time to get there.
So let me ask you this, Phil, because we talk about Jed Howard and Anthony Black. Obviously, Anthony Black never went down to the G League. Jed Howard was there all year. Then you're going to draft someone else now. What's going to happen with all these guys? Kevon Harris is probably gone. You agree with me? And McQueen will probably maybe make the training camp.
TQ is going to get another two-way contract. Like, Trevelin Queen is one of the best players in the G League.
Right.
Whether he can ascend to being a quality, end of rotation NBA player is still the question. I think that still depends on his 3-point shooting, because and that's come a ways, but his defense has come a long way. He's obviously a super athletic player. Athletes are always big. He was big in that game against the Nuggets that they won in Denver. So he's knocking on the door of the NBA. It would not surprise me if he gets a second two-way contract, or they give him a 2-year two-way contract to keep him kind of in the family for another 2 years. But yeah, no, I
But
wouldn't.
but Phil, what I'm getting to is, so you're drafting one guy, you have Black, you have Howard, you have Queen, you know,
Queen's a
and
two-way
we're
though. I'm not like,
yeah,
but like that's
but are you keeping Howard and Black on
absolutely,
the Magic?
absolutely. The goal for the Magic next year
Because you're getting a
should
lot
be
of players on that
no,
Magic
but
roster
but
now.
but guess what? It's all about competition. Like Anthony Black should be playing.
Okay.
Like I do firmly believe that he proved throughout the course of the year that he should be playing. His defense is very real. His shooting improvements very very real. Give him a summer to work on things, to learn from what learn from his experience in his rookie year. I think he will replace the Markelle Fultz minutes. Like Markelle Fultz is probably not
By the
coming
way,
back next year.
Markel Fultz had a good
He
series
had a
at the
very good
end.
series.
He
He had a
he
very very good
sucked at the
series.
beginning,
He looked
but
he
he
looked healthy.
came
He
out
looked
good
healthy
at
for
the
the first
end.
time in a couple months. Yeah. But
So do
the
you
Matt
do maybe even a sign and trade with Markel Fultz and
no,
get
no, no,
maybe
no,
a
no.
piece? No, you just let him ride.
I mean, who needs to sign and trade for him? He's probably not going to. He's probably going to go for the not for the taxpayer mid level exception. Like there's no reason. There's no like if a team that wants to sign him needs that to happen, you facilitate. But sign and trade, you don't just like say, oh, we're gonna sign and trade this guy. No, it's Markel Fultz's camp says, hey, we want to sign with Team X. They need to free up this amount of salary. Will you accommodate us? And the Magic will say, sure. They got the cap room. They probably can. But sign and trades aren't like that's not how sign and trade. Sign and trades
Okay.
are a favor to another team. It's not. It's not like, oh, we're going to hold this guy hostage to try and get something out of him. No, he's a free agent. If he wants to sign somewhere, he's probably not going to get signed for enough to require a sign and trade because his value's kind of at rot. He played better in the playoffs, but
Right.
he's still very injury prone. He's still not a good shooter.
I agree.
Like there's what team is going to throw a
I'm just
ton of
saying
money?
he upped his status in the playoffs a
A
little bit.
little bit, but I wouldn't expect him to get
Yeah,
more than
he's
the
still
taxpayer. He's probably looking at a $5 million a year contract. He's probably looking at like a
which
2
is
for
good
10
for him.
for
Yeah.
2 for 12. Yeah, like he's not, he's gonna have to find some place to rebuild his value. But you want Anthony Black to play those Markel Fultz minutes. The goal I think for Jet Howard is to replace the Caleb Houston minutes. Or, to me, the goal for the Magic is set up the roster in such a way that you're bringing in kind of rotation level players to support your team, but you still have your two rookies, your two sophomores now competing for minutes. You're not handing it to them, but they are competing for minutes. Whether they get them or not is up to them and up to the competition.
So you have Caleb Houston gone then.
I don't think the Magic are going to completely give up on him, but I see him more struggling the way Chuma Okeke struggled.
Okay.
I
He's
think
still on the team.
I think they trust him. He's 21. You can't completely give up on a kid at 21 years old. He got a lot of playing time though, and just wasn't consistent. I'd like to see him play Summer League. I don't know if he will, but I'd like to see him play Summer League again.
Okay.
Which is not good for a third-year player.
Right. So let's talk about the point guard and the shooting issue. I know you went on, and I was listening to this in the gym. Maybe I might have been one of the few people that listens to you sometimes in the gym, but I was listening to you on the Sacramento Kings podcast where you were talking about Monk, and you talked to the gentleman on there and said that you probably didn't think that would go through. Let's talk about Monk. There's been talks about Paul George now. Obviously, he's older. He's injury prone. We go to another person that's older and injury prone. As far, it's down the list as we talk about the Magic getting these older, big name guys that are injury prone. So, besides Monk, obviously Monk is a young guy. But what do you think? Who can the Magic get with all the cap space? Because this is going to be the summer where they have to sign Franz Wagner. They have to sign Jalen Suggs. Next year, they're going to have to sign Banchero to a max deal at least. So this is the last year where they can really produce.
Yeah, you got to spend some money. Now, I don't I don't expect them to go after like the biggest name. I think Paul
But is
George and
Monk
Clay.
a big name or
Monk is not a big name. Monk is definitely
okay?
within their price range. I think he's looking for a deal that is north of $20 million per year,
Yeah,
which
I believe you said about 19 is something that
I
they could
would.
do.
So the Kings can't offer him more than 17 and a half per year without losing his bird right. So they only have early bird rights on him. So they're capped on what they can go over the cap to offer him. So if they want to match a 20 or, I think we landed at 22 is probably the price he was looking for. If they wanted to offer 22, they'd have to maneuver around the cap a little bit to do that. I think it's really important though to
But if
remember.
you're the Magic, do you give him 22?
No,
That seems kind of a lot.
no, I think that's too much. I think that I know I mentioned this on the pod. The
Yeah.
priority this summer, the priority this summer is to re-sign Jalen Suggs. And if you're picking your three core players as Paolo, Franz, and Suggs at this point, and you're committing to them, those three players need to be your highest paid players. There's
But
a
they
little
are
bit of a status
committing
thing.
to all three of those guys,
I
correct?
believe they will. I believe they want to. Whether they get something done is a question, and we have until October 30th to answer that question. But I would not pay Malik Monk more than I would pay Jalen Suggs. Now, if you're going after Paul George, you're paying Paul George more than you're paying everybody because he's a veteran. If you're going after Klay Thompson, you're paying him $30+ million because he's a veteran. That's what he commands.
Clay
Um,
Thompson's old and he's injury
I,
prone.
I agree.
He's done.
I don't think he's the right guy, and especially after watching these playoffs, I don't think the
No.
Magic need a spot up shooter. They need a playmaker. They need someone who can create a little bit off the dribble. And to me, honestly, like this is the thing everyone's got to remember about cap space. Cap space is not just about free agency. So, we could go down the list of free agents, Clay, Paul George, Malik Monk, you throw Tyus Jones in there. We can go down that list, but cap space can be used to absorb more salary in a trade. So a lot of Magic fans have fallen in love with the idea of trying to get Anthony Simons from Portland. I'm not the biggest fan of that idea, but I understand the appeal. There's been a lot of national pundits who have suggested that idea. DeJounte Murray is still kind of hanging around. I don't think they'll do Trae Young. I'm not even sure DeJounte Murray is the right idea, but the
What about
Magic can get
Caldwell Pope?
I mean, KCP would be great. I don't think Denver's going to trade him. And what do the Magic have that would help the Nuggets remain a championship team?
Yeah, true. Good point.
That's that. I mean, that's like to do trades, you've got to give something up, and that's actually the problem the Magic have is they don't have a lot to give up. Like the idea that I've been pitching to people is I think the Magic should look at shopping Wendell Carter for a guard and then go out and sign Nick Claxton or Isaiah Hartenstein off the free agent market instead of going for guards and free agents. Go after big centers are a lot more valuable as free agents, and you pay a premium for centers more than you do for guards. You can find guards, you can find shooters around the league. A good big man is much harder to find, and there's two interesting ones at least on the free agent market that maybe don't have the versatility or the shooting that Carter has, that I think would protect the rim a lot more, which I think was a struggle in this series with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, especially, and again, a little bit matchup dependent, but it's something to consider too. But it's important to remember that for trades, you got to have a partner. You got to have someone that's willing to make a deal. But the Magic, Avery Simons makes $25 million. If the Magic were to trade, they're not, I don't think Portland's interested in Wendell Carter, but let's do it for instance. If the Magic wanted to trade Wendell Carter to Portland, they could eat that extra $8 million into their cap space, no problem. That they don't have to match salaries there. They can send out, if there's a team somewhere out there that's looking to cut some costs, I don't know who that would be. The Magic can send out very little salary and take in a lot more salary back because they have the cap room to cushion that. And so that's important to remember. If cap room is not about free agency, players don't move in free agency very often anymore.
But
cap room is used
we
in
keep
trades very
hearing
effectively.
about. Sorry to interject, but we keep hearing about the Malik Monk thing. I feel like that's the name that gets constantly pushed with the Magic.
At this point, all of it is just professional dot connecting. The Magic need a shooter. Malik Monk is an available shooter who fits a lot of needs for the Magic. The dots connect themselves. Like I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I have not seen any credible report, not credible reporting, but I have not seen any solid reporting connecting the Magic to Malik Monk. Certainly there's more reporting connecting the Magic to Paul George and Klay Thompson at this point. I don't think that. I think that's a mirage. I think that's the agent kind of trying to play up the value of his client. The Magic are, there's 3 teams in the league right now that are good and have cap room. The Sixers, the Magic, and the Thunder. The Sixers and the Magic are being used by every big name free agent to say, if you don't pay me, I'm going to go play for these winning teams that are going to pay me. That doesn't necessarily mean the Magic are actually doing anything. The Magic are actually interested. Actually, what Jeff Weltman said during exit interviews today very made me believe, this maybe kind of confirmed to me that, the Magic aren't looking to push a ton of chips into the center of the table this summer. They're going to be smart. They're going to be patient. They're going to add the right people. They're not looking to just add a big name or throw $30 million at someone willy-nilly. They know their bill is coming due. They're not going to be reckless.
But you can't also sit and not do anything.
No, they got to do something.
Because you got Paulo. Yeah.
But this is the thing about the NBA. Like, you got to remember this about the NBA.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff happens. The thing that's going to make us be gobsmacked on draft night is not being reported yet. There's going to be a lot of movement. There are a lot of teams that failed in the playoffs this year. The Bucks failed. The Sixers failed. The Lakers failed. The Suns failed. The Clippers failed. The Pelicans failed. They're expected to shop Brandon Ingram around. If you're looking for a veteran shooter that can play some point guard, CJ McCollum from the Pelicans, he's a little bit older than I'd like, a little bit more injury prone than I'd like, but he's sitting right there, and he'd be a really good fit on this Magic team too, if that's the direction they want to go. And they could, he's making $30-some million.
Do you think they'd pick up a guy like that for just a year or two, something like that, just to get?
Absolutely, because you can always flip him again, or you could re-sign him. At this point, it's just assembling the salaries that you're going to have when you're capped out. But like, that's the kind of veteran that would help the team. I don't think the Magic would do that, but there are, the point is, there are options out there that you aren't considering or you aren't thinking about because they're not so obvious and it's not being reported yet. So Malik Monk is obviously those dots deserve to be connected. It's a thing. I do think the Magic are going to be one of the teams interested. Whether that gets done, I don't know, but I think there's a lot more that's going to happen here before we get to July 1st or June 30th or whatever it is.